Okay, so we're Darlie Routier, Fact and Fiction, Separating the Truth and Lies in a Darlie Routier Trial, written years ago by our friend Mary Moody. I'm putting this whole series in video form so we can keep it forever, just in case the website doesn't stay. We've been through the introduction, the who's who, the Routier statements, the arrest warrant, author Barb Davis, and we're on the myths, the life insurance money. The myth that the supporters put out: the prosecution said that Darlie murdered her children for money, but the funeral costs exceeded the life insurance proceeds. Darlie and Darren's marriage was solid. She doted on the boys. She had no motive to kill her children. The prosecution did not contend that Darlie killed her sons for the insurance money. Although finances were certainly a factor, attributing a purely monetary motive is too simplistic a way to look at the murders of Devin and Damon. The state did, however, present considerable evidence that Darlie Routier had been experiencing a multitude of stressors in the months leading up to June 6, 1996. Some of the stressors are detailed below. Anxiety and depression. Family and friends downplayed Darlie's depression, describing it as lasting 2 or 3 days, at which time she snapped out of it and was fine. They want to give the impression that this was nothing more than a touch of postpartum depression. But the truth is that Darlie's emotional problems began even before Drake was born in October 1995, as shown in the excerpts from her journal. September 7, 1995. Devin and Damon are growing so fast, and I see myself getting older each day. I am now 7 months pregnant, and we're bringing Drake Routier into the world. I've had 2 dreams about death in the past several months. Both times I was hesitant to go, but when I did, it was such a wonderful feeling, one that you cannot describe. Both times I felt like I was going to be with the Lord. October 1, 1995. I really love Darren with all my heart, but sometimes I feel like I'm missing something. I'm sure I have everything every woman could ever wish for. Maybe it's the excitement, the things I used to do when I was younger, the thrill of not knowing, just doing whatever came up. I know I have a lot of responsibilities, but a little craziness once in a while sure wouldn't hurt. I want to grow old with Darren, but I don't want to feel as though part of me has to die to do it. I am young and I want to feel it. 6 months after Drake was born, things went from bad to worse. On May 3rd, 1996, 1 month before the murders, Darlie wrote a suicide letter to her children. May 3rd, 1996. I hope that one day you will forgive me for what I am about to do. My life has been such a hard fight for a long time, and I just cannot find the strength to keep fighting anymore. I love you 3 more than anything in this world, but I don't want you to see a miserable person every time you look at me. Your dad loves you all very much. I know in my heart he will take care of my babies. Please do not hate me or think in any way that this is your fault. It's just that This ends right here because Darren Routier walks in the house. That's where it stops at. At trial, Darlie and Darren brushed off this incident as insignificant. They claimed it was a non-event because she didn't actually take the pills. Very strange reasoning, but consistent with their need to minimize Darlie's problems. Barbara Jovel, a very close friend for 10 years who had also worked in Darren's circuit board business, testified for the prosecution. Shook. Did she tell you why she was about to commit suicide? Jovel. Because things were getting to her. Sometimes she feels like everybody expected too much of her, and the children were sometimes too much, and she just feels like she wanted to end it all. Darlie was nervous and depressed, and she fought with Darren a lot. Darlie told Barbara that she had all the pills out of the wrappers and was writing a suicide note when Darren walked in. She also told Barbara that if anything happened between her and Darren, that Darren's mother, Cyrilda, might take the children away from her. Barbara urged Darlie to get help and expressed her concern to Darren, telling him to go get help for Darlie. Go see a doctor and a counselor because something bad will happen. Neither Darlie nor Darren heeded her advice. And I did an interview with her in 2015, and she related on this again. She said the same thing in that interview she said in the courtroom. I would tell you up front that in my opinion, Barbara Jovel was a credible witness. Being of Polish descent, her English left something to be desired, but she clearly loved Darlie and showed great concern for her well-being. In fact, on cross-examination, she described Darlie as a loving mother and a giving, generous friend. Mosty. The kids were well cared for? Jovel. Yes, they were. Mosty. They were well dressed? Jovel. Yes, they were. They were happy kids, and many times she didn't really mind having other children over to the house. Darlie loves children. She was kind to all the children. Mosty. Was Darren also active with the children? Jovel. More or less. Darlie had to make him spend time with them. In an attempt to discredit Jovel, Mosty referred to her own past struggles with depression, but he made no headway. Mosty. That was one of the reasons why you wanted to give Darlie advice, because you had attempted suicide after you had had a child. Jovel. That is what frightened me. Her trying to commit suicide in the way she was acting. She was depressed and she was angry. She would come up to the shop really angry, throwing things at Darren. I just wanted to help. Darlie wasn't herself. Shortly after the murders, Darren was interviewed by a CPS worker, Jamie Johnson. The severity of Darlie's emotional state is revealed, curiously enough, in Darren's denials at trial of virtually everything he had told to Miss Johnson. Davis, do you remember telling Jamie Johnson that your wife was depressed, tired, and not herself? Darren, just for 2 or 3 days. Davis, did you tell her that your wife said, I'm sick of everything, I'm having a hard time getting the house clean? Darren, I don't know. Davis, did you tell her that your wife wanted everything perfect in that house and that it was an obsession, that she will clean and clean, but the kids will be right behind her making bigger messes? Darren, no, sir. Davis, did you tell Jamie Johnson there was no time for me and Mommy to be sexy or run around the house naked? Darren, no, she is lying. Davis, when you came home on May the 3rd and found your wife writing a suicide note, did you testify that you had just had a good cry with her and you woke up the next day and everything was fine? Darren, yes, sir. Davis, do you remember telling Jamie Johnson, a light went on my head saying Darlie needs help? No, sir. Jamie Johnson is a liar. Darlie downplayed her emotional problems in a similar fashion. Mulder, in the first part of May 1996, were you feeling bluesy or were you feeling depression or how were you feeling? Darlie, I was feeling somewhat, I would say, moody. I've been having a few days that were really rough. There it is again, a few days. And yet this contradicts her May 3rd suicide note where she wrote, my life has been such a hard fight for a long time. No matter how you slice and dice, 2 or 3 days is not a long time. Baby weight. Like many women, Darlie gained weight while pregnant with Drake, and was taking the diet pills Fastin and Palmitin. An extra 10 to 15 pounds can be upsetting, but may have hit Darlie and Darren particularly hard. By all accounts, they took great pride in their appearance, especially her sexual attraction. On the 1998 Lisa Gibbons show, Darren gushed about her beautiful body and her 36 triple D breasts and how people would turn their heads and look at her. It's like people were mesmerized by her. Nothing wrong with that, really, except for the fact that they denied any concern whatsoever with their weight gain. And it does not ring true. Davis, did you tell Jamie Johnson that Darlie went from a size 4 to a size 8? Darren, well, I don't believe so. Davis, as a result of weight gain, did you tell Jamie that she went into the postpartum depression and that she was aggravated by her weight? Darren, no, sir. Shook, did she talk to you about the weight she had gained? Jovel, yes, it bothered her very much. Shook, what did she tell you about that? Jovel, oh, that she makes me sick. Such a beautiful woman with 3 children. To me, she looks beautiful. And I said she was just giving herself a complex, and that would make her sick. Finances. Darren grossed over $264,000 in 1995, but the business slowed down considerably at the end of 1995 and continued to decline in 1996. By June, the Routiers were 2 months behind in their mortgage payments and could not make the minimum payment on a $12,000 credit card. They also owed $10,000 in back taxes, and Darren had not paid the monthly rent for his office space. Mosty, now you were describing the business in December of 95 and January of 96, Javel. Yes, we were slow, and the money wasn't coming in. Darlie would come into the shop and check the books, but there was no money because Darren was talking to me about it, saying that it's upsetting Darlie really bad. When he gives me my paycheck, he says, well, you're the only one getting paid now because I'm not. Darlie herself told Barbara that her weight gain was bothering her a lot and she was worried about the bills and how slow the business was. She said the children were sometimes too much. Despite their dire financial situation, the family was planning a 2-week trip to Pennsylvania. And Darlie was looking forward to a July vacation to Cancun with her friend Mercedes Adams to cover the cost. Darren applied for a $5,000 loan from the Bank One 2 days before the murders. He was turned down due to 1. Excessive obligations in relation to income, 2. An excessive amount owed on revolving accounts, 3. Too many new accounts, 4. Delinquent past or present credit obligations with others. Powder keg ignites. We may never know exactly what occurred between Darlie and Darren on the evening of June 5th, 1996, but a storm was certainly brewing. Barbara Javel testified that when she arrived at the Routiers at 5:15 p.m., Darlie was very upset, pacing back and forth between the kitchen and family room. The tension was so palpable that Barbara didn't stay long. On the stand, both Darlie and Darren denied any disagreements or argument later that night. According to them, they talked about the usual, the business, their upcoming trips, what to do about the 28-foot boat they purchased. Just a normal upbeat discussion. Darlie, there wasn't an argument. That's all been taken out of context. There was not an argument about the boat. There was not an argument about the car. What I was upset about was a man called me earlier. He was very rude and cussed me over the telephone. My husband's car was at his shop. He wanted my husband to come pick it up. And he was very rude to me. And I was upset. Mulder, all right. But it was just a normal discussion between you and your husband. Darlie, yes, sir. Her testimony, however, is contradiction by what she told Detective Patterson the morning after the murders. Huff, what did she tell you? She said that they had an argument earlier in the evening about their finances. Their June 8th, 1996 sworn statements also tell a very different story. Darlie wrote, Darren and I talked about a few problems we were having with the car and the boat and had a few words between us. Since I had the baby, I've been having some depression. Darren wrote, we talked about the business, bills, and how Darlie was having a hard time taking care of the babies all today. Darren and Darlie's statements were corroborated by psychiatrist Dr. Lisa Clayton, a surprising turn of events, considering that Dr. Clayton testified for the defense. Her first interview with Darlie occurred on June 20th, 2 days after her arrest. At that point, Darlie and Darren hadn't got their stories together about what had transpired between them on the evening of June the 5th. The information Darlie gave to Dr. Clayton that June 20 meeting would come back to haunt her 6 months later. Shook, and did she tell you that they had been fighting that Wednesday night? Clayton, yes. Shook, what were they fighting about? Clayton, she was upset because his Jaguar had been breaking down all the time, and I guess what accumulated was Clayton. She was upset because his Jaguar had been breaking down all the time, and I guess what accumulated it was that he had left it somewhere, and that the man called her and kind of been rude to her about having Darren come get the Jaguar. So she was aggravated because he didn't take care of the Jaguar. She was having to deal with this man calling her up and being rude while she had kids, and neighborhood kids, and every day in and out of the house. She also was upset because Darren was taking her Pathfinder and that was leaving her and the kids stranded. Also, they had a boat, something that needed to be done, because here they had had this car that wasn't working too well, and that was going to cost them the money to fix. And here they had this boat that was not working too well, and that was going to cost them money to fix. And both of these kind of Darren's deal. She wanted him to make a decision and get something done. You know, they kind of argued back and forth. They argued. Dr. Philip Resnick, a leading expert on filicide, has identified 5 main circumstances in which parents kill their children. One of those circumstances, spousal revenge, is the one which most closely fits Darlie's motivation. This is revenge against the spouse for infidelity or other perceived failing. There is no question that Darlie has experienced an extreme stress raising 3 little boys, combined with severe financial problems. Her life was deviating widely from the script she had written in her own mind of how she imagined her life would be. It is not known why women kill their children rather than their mates in a spousal revenge. But if Darlie felt that Darren was shirking his responsibilities, helping with the kids, the upkeep of the house, bringing home the bacon, killing his flesh and blood would be the ultimate payback. It also provides a partial explanation for why Darren stood by Darlie, despite knowing that she murdered their sons. Did he feel that it was his fault? That he drove her to it? Or perhaps the argument that night escalated into a threat of separation divorce, as Darren stated in his 2002 affidavit. If he threatened to take the boys away from her, she may have retaliated with the all too common response, "If I can't have them, neither will you." Darlie isn't talking, so we can only speculate as to why she stabbed Evan and Damon to death that night. The prosecution, of course, never has to prove motive, because it's not the element of the crime, i.e., it's not the fact that must be proven to convict a defendant. The state had the facts required by law, and they proved those facts beyond a reasonable doubt. When all is said and done, one fundamental truth remains. If the prosecution proved that Darlie committed these murders, and they did, then they don't have to prove she's the kind of person who could have committed these murders.